We discuss variety, that's what I always say, and we look for those personalities with vital information that we need for our own good. Now, we have professional bodies in this country, everywhere. The lawyers have, the accountants have, the journalists we have, all professions have. But some of them have problems due to lack of leadership. And others are thriving because of leadership and how their systems work. We want to know how relevant are these leaderships within these professional bodies, and how do they get organized to enable the bodies thrive. What are those mistakes that are made by these bodies, the systems of leaderships in these bodies that cause problems within the professions, and how everything would be moving. That is the area of our discussion this evening, and my guest is from the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Uganda, and his name is CPA Mutumba Mutumba Ronald. Is from Mutumba Mukobe and Company Certified Accountant. You're most welcome, sir.
Thank you, my brother.
How is everything?
All is well.
Yes.
Thank you for hosting me.
You're most welcome once again. Now, you subscribe to a leadership, not to a leadership, to a professional body. That is the Institute of Certified Public Accountants. What kind of leadership? What's the design of the leadership within your professional body? I'll show you why I want that. How is it designed? Do you have presidents, what, and all over the country? How is the leadership design stipulated in your professional body?
Thank you, Michael. The leadership of the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Uganda has been prescribed in the Accountants Act and the attendant regulations. It is a council, and the council is comprised of 11 members. Of the 11 members, 4 are appointees. 3 appointments, one for the Office of the Auditor General, another for the Accountant General, and another to represent the Ministry of Education. Then we have a 4th appointment, which is a ministerial appointee to represent other professional bodies. That is important because the Institute serves in the public interest. So that leaves another 7 positions. These ones we refer to them as the 7 elective positions. So the 7 elective positions are for members of the Institute of Certified Public Accountants who are in good standing. So every 2 years we have got elections to vote 7 members into the council, who will then be joined by the 4 appointees to make a council of 11 members. And at its first council meeting, the council of 11 elects amongst themselves a president and a vice president.
How relevant are these leaderships? Because the lawyers have, the who's have everywhere. Taking reference to your professional community, what's the relevance of these leadership systems in a professional body?
Michael, if I can go a little bit into the food world. If you want to see the best fish, you always check the heads and you check the gills. The quality of leadership will reflect the quality of the organization.
We'll go to that direction. But after voting for this council, you have the appointed team, you have the group that you elect for. How relevant is having them? You have a leadership body. What does it do? How relevant is it for the professional body?
The council of the institute is responsible for governing and controlling the affairs of the institute. And it is supported by a secretariat, which is headed by a chief executive officer, who is the secretary to the council, and therefore responsible for executing the mandate of day-to-day operations. So the council gives guidance and oversight, just like you do have a board of directors over any organization. It sets policies and also continuously monitors implementation of activities and policies. But this must be in accordance with the provisions of the laws.
Because your entity exists on a foundation of the law.
Yes, the institute is a statutory body established under the Accountants Act.
I want us to look at a general picture of all the bodies, the professional bodies. Can a body fail to operate, to thrive, to sustain its life without a leadership?
Yes, lack of proper leadership, good leadership actually, is a very, very big risk to the continuity of a body. Because it means, first of all, that body will not be able to implement its mandate. And even if it attempted to implement it, chances are very high that it will go off track. Yeah? And the entity will always find itself with a regulatory challenges to face with. Those are the bodies that we find are always in court, members suing the leadership, leaders suing one another, fighting one another, and things of the sort.
Don't these elections cause intrigue among the members and the professional body itself? You have had a number of professional bodies have cases in courts of law where they are trying to get rid of a president, get rid of a secretary general, get rid of who, because of political kind of issues that come up during elections and things like that. What is your view about that within that happens within political, I beg your pardon, within professional bodies?
For the institute, we have been in a position where yes, we can have disagreements internally, but we are able to coexist in harmony. A good example is this election season that we are in. Campaigning is ongoing, but there's harmony amongst the candidates and amongst the members, amongst the different people campaigning for different candidates. It is very important because at the end of the elections, the leadership is there to serve the institute and its members. So our strongest point for us lies in our willingness, our desire and deliberate intention to comply with the provisions of the laws. The laws that govern us may not be perfect for the now, but laws can always be improved. Even the Americans have amendments every other day. Yeah.
But what do you make of a situation where politics, campaigns would end up splitting a group of professional people who have been working together? What do you think normally brings in that? If you're to take a lesson as people going in for an election.
Personal interest coming over and above institutional interest.
Can it be avoided in an election?
Yes, it can.
How? Because at a time when somebody stands to take a position, definitely he has interest that he's chasing.
Professional services are a calling. I am an accountant as a calling. I'm a CP as a calling. The biggest asset I have is to be an accountant in good standing in the public at all times. So if I have got that mindset, then I will always think of the bigger picture of the profession than personal interest. And that is why our service as leaders is voluntary service. We are not remunerated to serve, but it is in our interest that we serve to grow the profession. So those professions that experience such challenges, it is because they are personal interests, and usually these are ego, money, short-term interests. But we are lucky that our institute, as of now, we have managed to always bring the bigger picture of the future of the interest first before our personal interest.
You say you are not working, as leaders, you don't look at remuneration. Are people in office working for free?
They are employees. The main contract between them and the employer is the reward that they are going to receive in exchange for the employment, which would be that monetary package, salary, and other benefits.
So if I'm an accountant and I'm elected president tomorrow, I expect a salary at the end of the month?
Not a salary as president.
Yes.
The presidency of the institute.
Because that's what I wanted. Do these leaders, what's the motivation for the leaders that are voted for by the accountants?
Motivation of the leaders. 1, service. 2, the knowledge, the inner knowledge that the growth of your profession is also your personal growth. In my case, that is my biggest motivation. That I can only grow as a professional if the professional body I subscribe to is also growing in its relevance to society. Society is dynamic.
So they don't earn anything? They're not paid anything?
There is no reward for serving as a leader of the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Uganda.
There have been talks in professional bodies of leaders who swindle funds from the coffers of the bodies. Have you had such stories in the ICPA?
At a personal level, I have not heard of any of those stories. And this is the reality. The day-to-day running of the institute is the responsibility of the secretary, who is the chief executive officer, and he is supervised by a board. And the board, in supervising the CEO, has got committees that are committees of the council. And these committees take responsibility for oversight of different aspects. And these committees are filled by members of the profession and any other co-opted professionals.
So there are no chances of anyone accessing wrongfully the coffers of the institute. What do you think is the loophole in other associations, other groups, where we see bad manners in as far as money matters is concerned?
It starts with how is that profession or institute, how is it regulating its members? What is its appetite for indiscipline? The moment you tolerate indiscipline at the lowest of levels, indiscipline is a cancer. It will grow into the rest of the organization. So it is the tolerance. At ICPA we have got zero tolerance. I trust we have zero tolerance because we serve in the public interest. So if we cannot be tight in our own environment, then how will the public trust us to serve in its interest?
Okay. Now, leadership comes with temptations. Why I brought in that actually is after you telling me that people serve for no pay. Isn't that temptation enough for people to go away with money that is supposed to be for the institute? People to be tempted to extend their fingers into what would be the association's kind of package.
You can only come in to serve as a volunteer into a professional body when you are already in a state where you are mature enough to appreciate the importance of service above self. 2, the control. When I speak about the leadership of the institute, I'm referring to the council, the governing council, and perhaps those who serve in the committees of council. None of those is responsible for day-to-day operational activities, executive responsibilities. Therefore, they don't have, or we do not have, since I'm still in service as of now, access to the resources of the institute. The resources are accounted for, or the person accountable is the chief executive officer, and the role of the leadership structure is
to supervise and watch what he does. So he has no access. Okay, the rest of you elected people cannot access.
No access. Ours is to provide oversight.
You only do oversight over the chief executive officer and his team as the elected leaders. Is that all? The council takes responsibility for giving the institute direction, a sense of direction. We need to, the existence of the institute is beyond Uganda. We are a member of the International Federation of Accountants. We are a member of the Pan-African Federation of Accountants. That membership also comes with responsibilities. We have what is called the Statement of Member Obligations. Yeah. So the governance, the council, is responsible for ensuring that the institute complies with the national statutory obligations and also complies with the
Pan-African obligations on the international scene, and also globally complies with the International Financial Accounting IFAC requirements. Now, something that is important for us to appreciate, the business environment and global economy is dynamic. So as accountants, it is important that we continuously adapt to that dynamism. So compliance therefore calls for continued monitoring of how are we adapting to the changing environment. That is the responsibility of the institute. Strategic direction, in other words.
As the ICPA, you are going in for an election season for people to take on leadership in the next season of your institute. How would you describe the outgoing team of leaders that you had for the season that is ending?
Considering that we started our term just coming out of COVID, I can say we have taken the institute back to normalcy. We have re-stabilized the ship. On the broader part of it, we have had also the council that has had cohesion, working as a team. And this is something I pledge that I would like to serve another term and be part of a team that where we have cohesion. And during that time, what are the achievements we have had? One, we have been able to enroll another 665 members within the 2 years. Coming out of COVID period, that one was a big achievement. We have expedited the enrollment process. We have started engagements with stakeholders to resolve the issues that are pertinent to the accountants. We have engaged some regulatory bodies to ensure that we ensure implementation of the Accountants Act. This act requires that heads of finance should be members of the institute.
Okay.
We have started
Heads of finance of what?
Heads of finance of any public body,
Okay.
or organization that is of public interest, that includes listed companies, government agencies. We have also kick-started again the projects of the institute, construction of institute properties. This had been slowed down because of the need for clearance from the KCCA department that is responsible for developments within the city. That is in as far as our Bukoto residence is concerned. The council has also overseen the drafting of improvements to existing regulations to cover areas like regulating the fees accountants charge for offering their services. And so many other areas within our regulations that needed. These are sitting now with the first parliamentary council that is responsible for seeing us go through the parliamentary process. So I can say on a scale of 1 to 10, our pass rate is over 80%.
Over 8 out of 10.
Yes.
Okay. Where do you think you have fallen short? What takes the 2 out of 10?
The 2 out of 10 could be the pace at which we have moved. Unfortunately, we found a backlog of issues that required attention. And considering that you have got to see an issue to its logical conclusion, you don't necessarily have to rush it out. We have unfinished business. That is the responsibility of the next council. So that could be the only area that some issues have not yet been completed to a logical conclusion.
Okay.
But most importantly, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step, and we took that leap.
Personally, how did you join the leadership? What drove you into joining the leadership team that is ending its season of leadership?
My story goes back to 1997. I like to say I'm a child of the institute. I'm one of the few, we were 33, who took faith when the institute was setting out its exams for the first time, the pioneer students. And I've grown step by step with the institute. going through our examination process. And by then we were a small team. Immediately I qualified in 2005, I found myself in the institute's committees. And it was obvious that I was home. This is a family I feel my contribution is valued and is actually also adding value. So since 2005, I served the Marketing Services Committee, I served the Member Services Committee, the Institute's editorial board. I have been a vehicle that has been driving the marketing strategy of the Institute. So with time it is inevitable. You want to get into
the higher position.
The higher position. And a time has come for me to give my last stretch of service. I trust I've mentored so many young people to come into the committees, and I'm looking forward to see them into the council itself. So initially the session that I've been part to was a call to serve at the helm. Now is to complete those initiatives that have been part of. If given the mandate, I only have another 2 years to serve, and I will become one of the senior citizens in the profession.
Okay.
But adds value in the background.
What is that very special thing you think you still have to do in the council?
There are 4 key areas that I feel I have a duty to drive. Our membership, you can say we have constituencies. We have members who are in private practice, what everyone calls the auditors, Mutumba Mukobe and Associates, the likes of those. We have issues that are pertinent to us.
Like? For
example, when it comes to offering our services, we're a statutory body. And there are there are other statutory bodies and or regulatory bodies that have to be audited. Now, ICPAU best knows its accountants. These bodies pre-qualify us, have been seeking to pre-qualify us. One of the issues I have been driving is collaborative engagements with these bodies on how can we resolve this lacuna. We are not fighting over this. We are only saying, let the regulator of the accountants, who is best placed to know his accountants, help you select who should offer you services. That's for the practitioners. Another issue for the practitioners is the issue of fees. The biggest threat in a profession is where members of the profession start competing with one another on the price at which they offer their services. You start cutting one another's price, lowballing. Before you know it, you actually compete yourselves to zero.
In a form of competing as business people in the same business, people end up cutting others' prices.
Yeah, we have not been regulating the prices.
Okay.
So the practice has been, if I am approached by Michael Jordan's client, I will to take away business from Michael Jordan, I will be tempted to ask to bill or propose a fee that is lower than what Michael Jordan has been.
Okay.
Bidding. That is not healthy. So how are we going about this? We drafted regulations pertaining or guidance on what fees should be charged at different levels. I want to see this enacted.
With the nature of the money world, is that avoidable?
Yes.
Where people have to compete for clients?
The lawyers don't compete on price because they have a regulation on how to bill. So let the client give you the service because of your skill, not because of your feelings.
So are you looking at coming up with a regulation on how to bill clients?
It's actually already been drafted. This council oversaw its drafting, and it is sitting in the first parliamentary council.
Okay.
I want to be part of the team that reviews the feedback from the FBC and sees its implementation. Because as a practitioner in Mutumba Mukobe and Associates, it also impacts my service delivery.
Okay.
Yeah. The third item, we have a gap in our practicing environment. Our regulator has got a wide scope of requirements to implement. There are those where the regulator cannot take on responsibility that are the interests of practitioners. A key example is to ensure that every accountant in practice has got adequate practical experience and skill, not the academic one. Two, ability for the small and medium practices to be able to access technology. They don't have the economies of scale to be able to invest in the required technology and operate in dynamic environments. So there is something else again that I've been part of the steering committee, what we call the Practitioners Forum. I want to also champion the creation of an entity, a body corporate that takes on that responsibility, that handles the key interests of the practitioners as practitioners.
Okay.
That is for the constituency of practitioners. The second constituency that I have is those members who are not in practice, members that are in employment. Many of our members in employment are feeling begrudged. Their take home is peanuts. If we can joke, the COVID joke, they are not remunerated like essential workers. So what is it that I'm talking about here? We have initiated, again, negotiations with the relevant officers on how to value the effort and output of professional accountants, especially in the public sector.
Okay.
The salaries in public sector are determined by Public Service Commission. So it is an engagement with the relevant ministry and agencies.